We're pretty excited to have our first Elk Camp segment tonight. We are very happy that we have a special guest on tonight, Travis O'Shea from Wapiti River. I just want to say thank you very much, Trav, for taking the time. I know you're super busy right now, getting ready for a massive elk hunt and camp with your buddies. So
yeah,
thank you very much for popping on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I also want to say, I've been using your stuff since I look back in my emails, and the farthest back I can find a message to you was like 2015. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you for a little history on Wapiti River, but I tried a couple of calls, couple of reads early on when I was trying to figure out how to use a read properly.
Sure.
And then stumbled onto your website, ordered a bunch of different ones from you, and really didn't turn back from there. The dome read is what I try to use all domes, which
Yeah.
you make, and I've tried a whole bunch. Some of my are the Black Widow, the Mayhem, the Patriot, the Chuckler. Virtually every one I've ever tried has worked for me. It's just you kind of settle into your favorites. So you could just give us a quick overview and history on Wapiti River and how you got started in that. I'm sure the members would be interested in that.
Yeah, so you're not far off there, Chuck, because I actually started Wapiti in 2013, and basically it was just on a whim. I started entering some of the Canadian Calling Championships and then the Worlds and stuff like that, and I was just how it really started. I was struggling to find a good read that would do stuff on stage that I was trying to do. And I just got fed up, and I thought, well, I'm going to try making my own. So I tore apart a couple different brands just to see what they looked like and how they worked. And the first read I made was actually like a latex glove that I cut up, and I just sandwiched it between a couple pieces of aluminum, and I used duct tape for the tape, so it was a little bit more comfortable. And it actually worked. I could make some pretty good sounds on it, and so got lucky on that. And then from there, it just snowballed to where we are now. Like we're 10 years into it now. So kind of just started, I was just building them for friends. That's how usually everything starts. And then it turned into a business kind of all on its own. There's not much, especially in Canada, there's not a whole lot of other people doing it and stuff. So I kind of took the niche there and kind of ran with it. So But going back, how I got started was just, I was a little kid. I used to use Wayne Carlton reeds and stuff like that when I started. And basically it just took off from there. My dad and them didn't really call a whole lot of elk. They hunted elk, but we always pushed, from cut line to cut line kind of thing, scaring them out for a rifle shot. And then once I got old enough I could hunt on my own, that's kind of when the calling took over, and the passion started burning, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, it's definitely an addiction and a passion. Once you've hunted elk and you get that first bugle coming back, it's crazy, right? That's where it starts. Awesome. So basically started in 2014 and kind of went from there, and been on the road since then. So we're gonna talk for a couple minutes more about this. I'm real curious on the elk calling circuit. So there's a Canadian circuit and a U.S. circuit then?
Yeah, they're back in the day when I first started, there used to be just the Canadian Elk Calling Championships is what it was. And that only went for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And then I don't know if there wasn't enough interest in it, or something happened with the organization and it kind of went kaput after a little while. And then so 2013, I started calling in the World Elk Calling Championships down in Las Vegas. And so that was awesome. Be brutally honest with you, the first couple of years I called in it, you're nervous as all heck going over there,
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, you can imagine. You walk up on stage and you're just shaking all over the place. Like, oh, I got to call against that guy, and oh, I seen that guy on TV, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, first couple of years I absolutely bombed, and then I really started putting a lot of practice in, and 2015, I come back and actually made the finals, top 6 of the finals. And then after the finals was all said and done, actually won 3rd place in the world. So first, second, and third, your class was the world champion. And so I guess basically in the pro division, I believe I'm still the only one that has that title of world champion. So it's pretty cool. You know, little guy from Grand Prairie, Alberta, who would think something, right? So, but yeah, so it's pretty fun. And then I just kind of go back every year since and keep trying to better your odds and you know, try to get higher and higher up on the stage. But tell you, these guys that are coming up, there's a lot of really good callers, and any one of those guys on there out of the 30, 40 guys that are there, any one of those guys can win at any time, honestly. So just matters what the judges hear and what they want to hear that day, really. So
yeah, I suppose it's pretty subjective, right, with the judging. They you know, they know what they want to hear when they set up the scenario, and it's just a matter of you know, how it's delivered and what they think they're hearing, right? So well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know the Canadian elk hunting community is super proud of, you know, having you as a Canadian down there, you know, competing with the likes of the, I guess, Corey Jacobsons of the world and Phelps and all those guys, right? So awesome.
You got Brian Langley and Joel Turner. I mean, those cats have been around forever. They've won it all, and just to sit with those guys and call with them is honestly a complete honor, because otherwise you'd never get to hang out with them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, you know, let's segue into calling, and in particular, there's a lot of, you know, I know it's pretty daunting and overwhelming. Blake's kind of going through this right now. I went through it back in 2015 or so, learning how to use a mouth reed.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe any tips and tricks you can offer the new people that are trying to learn how to get away without swallowing a reed, right?
Yeah, for sure. So what I'll start off with is just the basics, really. Honestly, like you have a reed, you know, most of the new companies now will have domes on them, stuff like that, like the pink dome. This is just a cow-calf call. This is one of my sassies. So it's a really light latex, like 25 thou, and the stretch is nice and light. When you're starting out, that's kind of what you want. You want a reed that is going to be super easy to make sound on. So literally how it works, it'll sit on your tongue. The tip of your tongue is the front, and it stays down in your lower teeth, kind of as low as you can keep it. So your tongue is kind of arching, basically, is what's going on. It arches. Basically, it'll kind of, if I hold it, it'll kind of do something like that, really.
Okay.
And basically what you're trying to do, you're using the air in your diaphragm. And I always tell people just hiss like a snake. So just real light. You're not like hammering air, just real light. And then if you put the reed on your tongue with the latex facing out, so like this, like that, raise it up into the roof of your mouth and just hiss air. You'll just get that sound. And how you're getting that, the latex, basically, once you put air across that, it just starts vibrating. And once that vibrating starts, that's how you're getting all the sound. That turns the sound on, basically. So from there, once you get that sound, I teach everybody just kind of go up to a high note, controlled, and then come back down. So it'll sound something like this. So that's just the basics, you know, and obviously that doesn't sound like a elk call or anything like that. But once you learn that sound, I think some guys call it the siren. I think Dirk calls it the siren. I just call it like your high note to a low note. And basically, what it is once you go up, you hit the high note. So you're learning your bugle. And then once you come down, you're learning your cow sound. So to turn that siren into a cow sound, you just start shortening it all up. So it'll go something like this. See how I just literally just shortened it till you get to your cow
Right.
sound that you're looking for. And also in that same line, you got a bugle built in. Once you learn that siren, go up to the high note and don't drop down now. Stay up in the high note and just go "Rah" at the end with your voice. So it'll be a bugle. So now you got the very basic bugle, all just out of that little siren that you just learned. So you got cow sound, you got a bugle, and if you shorten it up even more, you'll have a calf sound. So I'll shorten it. Shorter. Now you got a calf sound. So you got calf, you got cow, and you got a bugle.
Right. And, just, one little comment I would add there too. I think the biggest learning curve for me when I was learning how to use a reed, and I know I've talked to a few other folks that have ran into this too, you tend to use too much pressure and blow too hard. And, then it becomes it just too much pressure on the latex. You'll start burning up reeds and, you wear them out real fast, right? And I noticed my progression over 5 or 6 years when I was learning how to call. I would go through reeds. This is bad news for guys selling them, but I would go through reeds quickly, right, in those days and wear them right out. And now I can, you can get a lot of mileage out of a reed if you take care of it and kind of manage your pressure, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're learning your pressure and you're learning your air. And so me nowadays, I'll take like my Frolicker, which is a really light calf reed, and then this one's my Sassy. It's equally, this one just has a little bit more tension than the Frolicker. But honestly, one of these reeds will last me all September. And I mean, I'm doing all my cow calf. I'm doing all my low note bull sounds, raking, throwing in moans and groans and chuckles and little tiny bugles and stuff like that. If you take care of your reed, they do last a long time.
Yeah, I mean, good stuff, Travis. I think the tips on just learn the basics. There's lots of stuff on YouTube. And again, respect your reed, and it'll work wonders for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other thing too that I noticed with your reeds in particular is the contour of the actual diaphragm itself, like the I don't know what you call it, the base of it. Yeah, the outside.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
You
shape or whatever.
Yeah, the shape. You can customize that to fit the roof of your mouth with like just tweaking it. You can cut little corner off or whatever.
Yeah, your sides all kind of fold independently like that. So it's pretty. And then if you have to go smaller, you can literally just trim just a hair at a time.
Yeah.
Be really careful though when you trim them, because once you go too far, you're gone too far. There's no going back. So but
exactly.
I find my reeds fit like most adults, and they fit honestly most kids. I'll give them away quite frequently at like trade shows and stuff to kids, and they'll be walking around for 10 minutes, and next thing you know, they're squawking and making sounds all over the place. So it's just a matter of learning where to fit it in your mouth and not being scared to try it.
Right on. Cool. So once you get the elk calling down and you learn how to use a reed, it's time to hit the bush and start looking for the big beast. So obviously being from Grand Prairie, your elk hunting has been primarily Alberta, I would think. So your tactics and your elk are a little bit different. I've hunted elk in Alberta a few times myself. And just a couple notes on my experience up there. I was up in the Peace Country, and I always tell people that country is a little bit. It's kind of like the opposite of hunting in southern BC. Instead of having huge mountains that you climb, you got huge canyons that you go into. Yeah. And instead of the elk going up to bed, they're going from the farmers' fields or the ag areas down into the canyons. And so you're chasing them and getting right down with them. Same concept though. You're going after them in their bedroom. So I guess, on that note, we're trying to cater to everybody, and including our Alberta members too. So when you're doing your preseason scouting in Alberta, what, typically what kind of terrain are you looking for new spots? Like what's your strategy there?
So honestly, what it is, if I try to find new areas every year just so I don't get bored. Because you want to be chasing like different elk every year if you can. So it all starts honestly with Google Earth, iHunter, Onyx, those kind of mapping things. All I'm really looking for is here it's all oil lease and logging roads. So I'm looking for cut blocks, pipelines, creeks, all the little feeder draws that are, the ephemeral draws that are feeding all the little creeks, all of those, any kind of water source like that if you can find two little creeks that go into one or two draws that go into one, good chances are probably going to be elk there, because they got to have water no matter what. So my key is, number one, look for water, and then basically I'm looking for the cut blocks, all the logging slashes, pipelines, everything like that, because the pipelines have all fresh, vegetation on them, and the cut blocks, once they start growing up, those elk are a magnet to those. And obviously we have a lot of agricultural, like private land and stuff like that. I try to honestly shy away from that kind of stuff. I'm not real big on going in and trying to beg for permission to hunt on someone's land. And even if you do get permission to hunt on that land, what if there's some other guys that have permission as well, right? So you're bumping into them. Mine's all crown land, what we call it here. It's our, it's our forest area where you can just drive in on the lease roads and park your rig and jump out and walk down a cut line and find a game trail and get in there and start calling elk. It's kind of the plan. But so it all starts with the Google Earth, looking for really good spots that had feed, deep timber where they can get away and hide. And then they also got water. Then from there, I take those little, I mark up the Google Earth pretty good in my iHunter. I'll have little spots. I got to check this out. I got to check that out. Oh, that looks like a lick or something like that. So it all kind of starts there. And from there, it's literally, drive the truck out. If you have a quad, get on the oil lease roads, number one, and just start putting down the roads. And once you cross a track, like if you see any elk tracks, or even moose tracks or anything, number one, get off your quad and look at the track and see, okay, is it going left or is it going right? Well, right away, you see a direction of those tracks. Well, now you can bring up your iHunter app or Onyx or whatever it is on your phone, and you can be like, okay, well, I'm sitting right here and this track went to the west. So why is he going to the west, right? There's got to be a reason those tracks are going there. So right away, it's like ding, ding, ding. Okay, it's going to water, he's going to feed, or he's going to a bedding area. So, I mean, that's the very basics of it all. And it all starts, from the mapping, get on your quad, or even just drive your truck. If you can drive in on the oil lease roads, just drive your truck and look for tracks. And then I try to get a little further back if I can, park the rig and unload the quad and go in from there. And it's the same thing if you want to go down cut lines and stuff, because here in Alberta we got hundreds and hundreds of cut lines everywhere, and they just go through the bush everywhere, right? And then you got seismic lines that kind of twist and turn their way through the bush. Get on those things and either hike them or get on your quad and walk them. And what I'm looking for there, because it's mostly vegetation that's pretty grown up, I'm looking for game trails that are now crossing my path as I'm going down. And once you'll see ones that aren't worn very good, but once you see one that's like worn black to like dirt, you're like, man, you better be checking that out. So now I'm checking, okay, which direction are the tracks going on that one? And then again, I'm looking at my map and I'm saying, okay, why are they going over that way? There's a reason they're going there. And from there, you get on those game trails, and I mean, you'll find wallows, you'll find meadows in the middle of the bush, you'll find feeding areas. They'll take you to bedrooms, they'll take you to rub lines. I mean, from there, it's awesome. They take you everywhere. And honestly, that's how I find all my new spots. It's you just can't be scared to get on the game trails and get deep in the bush and just keep following them. And well, I'm probably my own worst enemy because I'm bad on those game trails. You get following it, and then one trail leads to another trail leads to another, and it's like, oh well, there's kind of a ridge over there. I wonder what's over there, right? I want to go check that out. So you'll follow more game trails over to that spot, and before you know it, you're like, where's the rig at? So before you
exactly.
before you leave your rig, don't forget to mark it on your map so you can work your way back eventually. And that's kind of how I do it. I'll kind of make it so I can work through an area and then kind of scout the bottom end of it and then come back a different way back to where the truck and quad is parked. And so you're kind of doing basically a big loop is what you're doing. And
Right.
man, it's addicting. Like for me, that's the addiction right there. And then when
Finding
you
the
start finding
spots,
you find those spots, and then come archery season when you get to go into those spots, and now you got bugling elk in those spots. Oh man,
even
that's
better.
money. Yeah, that's awesome.
So are you a camera guy too? Do you put trail cams out when you find a good spot?
Yeah, absolutely. Up until the last probably 3 or 4 years, I wasn't honestly a real camera guy. They're just so expensive, and I'm not really a techie guy with Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So cameras, it's another thing that's pretty techie, right? It's you got to learn how to format cards and be tinkering and playing with all that kind of stuff. But in the last couple of years, I've kind of come into my own, with the cell cameras and stuff. They make the game a lot easier, and you can be home scouting while all of a sudden there's pictures of moose and elk popping up on your phone. Honestly, those have changed the game for us. And I use those a lot in new areas and old areas I like. And it's just another tool that's just awesome. And it's fun, you get those evening pictures and early morning pictures, and it's like, okay, even my wife is the same. Like she grabs my phone, she's like, oh, what's on the cameras now, right? And she'll scroll through all the different cameras and see what came through. So yeah, it's a great tool.
Sure.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. We've got laws in BC here that we're not allowed to use the cell cams during hunting season, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, just even in the preseason stuff, it's awesome. And in fact, I was chatting with a buddy earlier, just before the podcast. We were talking about an area that we're going to hunt together for elk later on in the fall, and the rut's a little bit later in this spot. And I asked him, I said, so when do you think the peak rut will be? And he sent me a text picture from his trail cam, and it was a bull mounting a cow, and it was like the 20th of, it actually was the 27th of September. He says, yeah, you're right. The rut's a little bit later. So,
yeah.
Awesome. So let's get back to the elk calling. So you get your spot. What's your approach? Obviously, I'm sure you use the wind to figure out where you're going to go. Like if you got multiple spots and you're hunting, I'm assuming you're hunting pretty close to home. So you probably have a game plan that changes every day on where you're going to go, right?
Yeah. Basically, I check the night before on your weather app and see, okay, we're going to have a southwest wind. We're going to have an east wind, something like that. From there, I'm literally looking for, okay, I like to have 2 or 3 spots because now I'm going to be, centered on in the morning, what's going to happen in the morning. So, and honestly, it all starts as soon as I'm driving out to one of the spots that I've picked. Literally, because I'm only 45 minutes from home to where I normally hunt, maybe an hour most, I'll stop on the highway when I get out in the country, and I'll park the truck on the side of the road and stand in the middle of the road in the dark and, just, which way's the wind going, right? Okay, now you're confirmed. We got the same wind that it said it was going to do last night. And so now I'll start, okay, I'll go to spot A, B, C, whatever one I figure I want to go to. And that's all decided by my scouting previously. Unless it's early season. I kind of have a game plan. Early season, the first 2 or 3 days, the first 2 or 3 mornings, for sure. Those are used for hunting bedrooms only. That's kind of one of my solo hunting tactics. And a bedroom is found the year previous, basically. And that's all from walking the game trails, You'll be walking the game trails in the middle of the bush, and all of a sudden you'll find trees that are just tore up, and it's usually like spruce trees and pine trees. You'll come into a little thicket, and it'd be like a corridor. The main trail kind of goes right through it all, but every tree that you're looking at for 50, 60 yards is just tore up, and that's basically a bull's bedroom, right? So anytime I see those, I mark those on my map, and now you got a spot to go check out next year. And if I find 2 or 3 in a year, perfect, they're all marked in there. Now you got two or three mornings, right? And those are kind of some of my favorite bulls to hunt, because they haven't been pressured all year. They've had a whole year to calm down. They're very naive. So you slip into those areas and you don't got to get close, 150 yards away kind of thing. I'll set up, right on the side of a game trail and check the wind, make sure you got the wind right. You're on the downwind side, so they got to come looking for you. And I'll literally just start, and the sequence is so simple. I literally start with a little bit of tree raking, and I do that for about a minute to minute and a half, 2 minutes, just tree raking. And then I'll stop and I'll be silent for about 2 minutes. And
so
then,
Trav, sorry to interrupt. Quick question then. So if you're going straight to the bull's bedroom, are you trekking through the bush in the dark, like pre-dawn? You're trying to get as close as you can to that spot?
Yeah. So
okay.
So in the summertime, I will have hiked into those spots once or twice just to find the easy access. And I want to go into these spots on the game trail so I can be as quiet as I possibly can. So now it's like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm in there. I'm hiking these game trails ever so slow. It's not a race. You're not running. You're not doing anything. You got to remember, you got tree roots and you got sticks and you got logs that could be laying across. So, you're kind of just ninjaing it back into there, going nice and slow. And then once I'm always looking at my map on the phone, so I know how far I am from that supposed bedding area, what had all the rubs. And that's all I try to do, get 150, 140, 160 yards kind of thing in that general area and have the wind in your favor. That's the most important thing. And then, basically start into my routine, raking some trees for a couple of minutes and then go absolutely quiet for 5-10 minutes. And basically what you're going to happen, you're going to pique the interest of that bull that you think might be in that bedroom. You don't know yet. You haven't heard no bugles. You haven't heard anything. And by you just raking a tree, you're probably still not going to hear anything. So then after about 5-10 minutes of me just, being there, sitting there, watching ever so vigilantly for any kind of movement, and then I'll go into a little bit of a calling routine. And I'll usually start off with a little bit of chuckles, some little whines and groans and stuff like that. And basically what that is just a bull that's, he's filling his oats and kind of thing, and he's rubbing trees. And anytime a bull's rubbing trees and moaning and groaning, it's almost like he's showing off for the girls that could be in the area or something like that. So that's kind of what I do. I portray a bull that's doing that. And you can imagine that bull that's in the bedroom, he's going to be hearing this and he's going to, okay, well, who's this new dude in my area? Like, I don't like this one bit, right? So after you do your sequence 2 or 3 times, and that's usually all it really takes, that bull's going to come search you out. And most of the time early in the season, he's going to come looking, he's going to be very quiet, so you won't even know he's coming. So once I get into my little calling sequence, and I'll just kind of show you. So pretend I've raked the tree for a minute or a minute and a half. Now I'll get into the second part of my calling routine, and it'll just be really quiet, low tone type sounds like a real bull would do. I'm only trying to put my sounds out there. Like, pretend you're trying to call like 50, 60 yards out in front of you. So it's really quiet and really low. So it'd be something like this. Literally just do sounds like that for 30 seconds to a minute. It doesn't take long, and just have fun with it. Get in with it. Take your bugle tube and swish some grass and hit a couple little twigs. Make it as realistic as you think you can. Like, portray that you're a bull actually doing it and having fun doing it. And then again, just go totally quiet for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And really, if you have binoculars or whatever, we all have binocle harnesses. So grab your binoculars and look through the trees and, look around. Because this is the best scenario. Now that bull has heard you, now he's going to come searching for you. And that's the best thing you could ever have. A bull that's searching you out, he's moving, but you're stationary, right? So the minute you start moving and have to go to an elk, you're on his battleground and he's watching for that movement. The minute you make movement, he sees it, he's gone. So now you've put the odds totally 100% in your favor. He's got to come search you out. You're making the sounds, and now you're ready. You have an arrow knocked. If you see him coming, don't do any more calling. Just let him search you out, and they can pinpoint you to exactly where you are. I'm sure you guys have found that, if you're calling from a spot, they can walk within 5 feet of you. Like, they know exactly somehow from 100 yards
amazing.
out. They know where you are. So just let it unfold. It's the most magical morning of hunting you will ever experience. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it there. That was something I was going to bring up later in the interview here. Is it just blows your mind how they can track the sound and where it's coming from. I mean, we had this last year. We were working a bull, and he was moving in, and I'd say he was probably 150, 200 yards, and we were in really steep terrain, real nasty bush in southwestern BC, southeastern BC, and all of a sudden he sent a cow in, and he stopped bugling, and this cow came over the ridge from 100 yards through the timber and walked straight up. I mean, she was 3 feet from you, Blake, like walked right to you, and it just was like, wow, it's just crazy how they know. So I think that's a danger. A lot of something people do maybe, and I'm guilty of it myself. You don't think they know where you are, so you're calling in that last couple minutes to try to close the deal, when realistically that bull knows exactly where you are, and you don't need to make that call, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what you can only hope for, right? It's just let them search you out and have fun with it. And I mean, that's why we're there. We want to have fun. Yeah, we definitely want to feel the freezer, no doubt about it. But like, to me, elk calling and stuff like that, it's a chess game that you just want to keep playing, and you want to play it over and over. Even if you call in like a spike bull or a 3-point or something that you don't even want to shoot, honestly, just play with them. Play with them as long as that elk will be in your lap and let you play with them. You're going to learn so much. And I think that's where most guys fail. As soon as they see an elk, well, now they pipe up and they're scared to make any sounds whatsoever. But for me, it's the exact opposite. That's when I really turn my calling on, and I want to see what I can get away with, especially if it's a bull that I'm not going to shoot anyways. Well, you really have nothing to lose. So throw some sounds at him, throw some little spike squeals, see what he does. Throw a lip ball at him, see what he does, throw a cow call and mew, anything like that. Rake a tree right in front of him. What's he going to do, right? I took my buddy out, Dylan, we were out last year, the year before, and we called this little 3-point in. And 3-points are legal. Anything 3-point and bigger here in Alberta, you're allowed to shoot in my area. And so sure enough, we called in this 3-point. Dylan was the shooter that day. Well, he had his sight set on something a little bit bigger, obviously. This was like the first morning out kind of thing. So we thought, well, let's just play with this guy and see what he'll do. Well, we had that elk in our lap for 45 minutes, and he put on the best show for me and Dylan that you could ever want. And there was one little tree that was kind of behind me off to my left, and I was kind of up right against it. So I kind of turned. It's kind of like one of those little willow trees that's only like 6 feet around kind of thing. Well, in the end, it worked out. This bull was on the other side of it. So I reached forward and I pulled some of the branches off, like all the leaves off one branch. And I was just bent forward, just pretending like I was eating them, and I was dropping the leaves, and they were like going down to the ground. And honestly, this bull's just kind of looking at me going, what the heck? He's eating those leaves, but
what's wrong with him?
They're going to the ground. And then all of a sudden, the elk starts pulling on the branches on the other side of the willow, like 6 feet away from me. Right? So
that's awesome.
It was pretty cool, yeah. And then he literally walked about 20 yards away from Dylan, right beside him, and started raking a tree. Just put on an absolute awesome show. Just so that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's just you got to be scared not to try stuff, and I don't mean like move fast and like do stuff, but move really slow and see what you can get away with. And I think guys will be really surprised. I kind of learned that from my dad. Like, he was a rifle hunter, and as soon as he saw an elk, he thought, "Oh, I gotta shoot right now. He's gonna get away." But I mean, it's not that way. It's like be patient and move slow and enjoy the moment and see what happens, right? And you're gonna find the elk just isn't gonna run away, right? So.
Yeah, I think they, again, I certainly don't have the experience you do, but I've had a lot of crazy encounters. One of the areas in BC is kind of broken into different regions for legality when you're hunting elk, and in the southeastern portion of the province, or most of the southern half of the province, is all 6-point or better for rifle. There's some opportunity for smaller bulls earlier in that, but we're rifle hunters, so my experience has all been with 6 points for the most part. Yeah. And we've called in a lot of 5 points and 4 points. Blake, I've been trying to get Blake and elk for like 6 years, 7 years. We've called our share. I had a situation 3 years ago. I was up a few days earlier, scouting around, and right at opener, and I think it was like the 10th or 11th of September, and I bumped into some guys at the end of this logging road, and 2 young guys had shot a 6-point in the morning, and they were just packing it out and got it to the truck.
Awesome.
And, I was chatting with them, and they told me, they said, "Look, dude, we're tagged out. We're going home. But this morning we had 4 bulls going in this log out. So you should come back." Yeah. So I was like, all right. So I wasn't really hunting hard. I came back the next day, and it was like 1:00 in the afternoon. 30 degrees out. I drove to the end of the landing, parked my truck, got out. I walked 10 feet off away from the truck, and I did a location bugle, and I had 2 bulls torch off. And I was like, holy shit. So I grabbed my rifle, bailed down, got in. There was sort of some regrowth, 10-foot Christmas trees. I started to get into those to set up, and beyond that, it was complete dark timber, like just exactly where you would want to find out. So I started calling, and as near as I could figure out, it was a scenario with a bull that had some cows, and then a satellite bull. And I ended up I called a small 5-point in, and he was, like you said, he came right in. I learned so much in that hour and a half I played with that bull. Yeah, and I was able to move, and I had the wind perfect. And the lesson there, what I'm trying to get at is, wind is more important than movement, I think, when you're hunting elk. Like you said, if you move really slow and try not to make eye contact if that bull or cow or calf is close, you'd be surprised what you can get away with. But it's interesting. How do you handle so that's the early season. So you've got the bull without cows. You try to sneak into his bedroom. How do you handle a situation, say, like, a week later you come back and bulls are starting to congregate and get cows? What's your strategy when you get out of the truck in the morning then? I'm sure it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah. So in that time here, like in Alberta, we'll go through the first 4 or 5 days. You'll actually have a lot of bugling action, and you'll have the bulls are establishing their pecking order kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you hit a lull, and it'll be like from, say, September 1st or 2nd until like September 10th. So you'll have an 8 or 9 day lull where you jump on the truck and you're bugling and you're covering ground and you're doing everything right, but you're not getting a peep. You're not hearing nothing. So in those instances, it's a matter of getting back down in the deep bush, on those game trails. What I find with those elk is you gotta kind of break their bubble of 100 yards, and then they'll finally pipe off and make a really quiet type sound, or they'll hit their antler on a tree just to tell you that they're there or something like that. So that's how I handle those times when it's really quiet. And us as hunters, we all go through that, and it's very frustrating. I mean, even for me, it's frustrating. you're walking miles and miles every day for 10 days straight and you're not hearing a single bugle. And you get home and I asked my wife, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, you bugle and you call and you do this, and you think, well, there's elk there's fresh tracks, there's fresh green poop and stuff like that. So they're there, but they're just not talking, right? It's just you haven't got into their zone yet to make them have to reply to you, really. So then from there, I find from September 10th on, then it's hit and miss any day. They can just the 10th, they can just all of a sudden start firing off, and you're good till like September 20th. You got bugles all the way through. So it gets a lot easier. Now you can call in, like you're saying, all the satellite bulls that are harassing all the herd bulls and stuff like that. I used to get in the rut of trying to chase a herd bull in the morning when he's got his cows and he's trying to go back to bed. I used to push them and try to get him to turn and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's really hard to turn a herd bull like that once he starts moving with his cows. He's pushing cows. He's been harassed all night by the satellite bulls, and you're just one more satellite bull coming in, and you're just adding to his frustration. So he hasn't paid any attention to the other satellite bulls. So why would he pay attention to you, right?
That makes sense.
So you're kind of just in the mix of that one. So you got to kind of turn your thing in. I know you guys are in the 6-point zone, so this probably wouldn't work for you. But for me, that you're just out there and you want to call as many bulls in as you can, and maybe throw one in the freezer. So a 4 or 5 point is going to be fine for you, and that's what most of those satellite bulls are going to be. I mean, you might find a small little, dinker 6, but most of them are going to be 4 and 5 points. So the only thing you can do on that, and what I found works for me, and it's hard to do because these elk move so fast. I mean, one of their paces is like 3 or 4 of my short little legs, right? You got a short little fat guy trying to parallel these elk up these ridges and getting into their bedding area. But if you can just kind of keep up with them, you don't have to run beside them. Just kind of keep tabs on where they're going. Let them get 200 or 300 yards ahead of them. That herd bull's still going to bugle to his cows and tell the cows where he's going, where he wants to be, and stuff like that. The cows are just going to lead the way, and eventually they're going to get to their bedding area. They're going to plop down. They're going to lay down, and the bull's going to be right there with them. So even though if you're 200 or 300 yards behind, you're going to slowly catch up, and now pretty soon you're 150 yards from that herd bull and his cows. So at that point, that herd bull is pretty worked up. He's probably still bugling from his bed. He'll bugle till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Once later in the season, 15th, September 20th, in that area, he'll scream for another hour for sure. So you can either just sneak in on him and try to get really close for a shot, or you can just play the waiting game, get on the outskirts, let him lay down with his cows for a little while. He's going to sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then he's going to get up and he's going to scent check those cows again, just to see if any of those are coming into estrus. And at that point, that's a really good bull that you can call in. Now just go in and portray that you're a bull that maybe scooped in and stole one of his cows, let out a couple cow screams, couple cow mews, and then go into like a breeding sounds, like start raking and portraying for that cow, and that bull's going to walk over to you. So now you got a really good chance of shooting the herd bull. That's probably a big 6x6, what you guys are after, right? So
sure,
it's just, you just have to really think of their mentality and where they're going and what they're doing. And I mean, that's obviously really hard for the first year hunter to know that kind of stuff. But I've been hunting with my dad since I was 6 or 8 years old. So you kind of learn these things as you go. And to be quite honest with you, for me, it's been a lot of trial and error and a lot of failures. So don't take that personally. Like, these elk they're gonna whoop you. I don't care if you're Corey Jacobson, the best caller on the planet. These elk are gonna whoop you, no matter what you are. I mean, you're a beginner caller, they're gonna whoop you. You're a good caller, they're gonna whoop you. They win 9.5 times out of 10, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Just be prepared for it and know that's the nature of the beast. These things spend their whole life getting away from hunters, getting away from cougars, getting away from wolves and bears. And they've seen it all. They've done it all. And they know, I swear to God, when we bugle to a bull, they know that it's a hunter. And if you get the right bull, I think he just wants to play the cat and mouse game with you and just see how big a fool he can make of you. So, and they do, you'll start at one spot and he'll take you in a great big circle and you'll end up back on your tracks and you'll be like, man, this looks, oh shit, I was just here like an hour ago. And that bull took you back around to the exact same spot. For sure he smelt you, and he don't even care. He smelt you, and he smelt you, and he still played the game with you, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you get the smart bulls, and I don't care. Like you said, you can be the best caller on the planet, but more often than not, he wants to find out what you are for sure, right? He's coming in just to confirm, is this human or is it elk, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
Let's talk about that situation for a minute, Trav, where you got the herd bull and you figured out where he's going to bed. For a lot of the BC guys, that means top of the mountain on the darkest side, in a nasty spot. But that's why we e-scout. That's why why you have all the preseason scouting, and you gotta kind of know where they're headed or have a general idea. So let's say you get close, you start to hear cows or you hear elk, mumbling around. What's your approach? Let's say he's bedded down for say 2 hours and he's getting up 2-3 hours. He's getting up to scent check. What type of bull elk are you going to be when you're coming in? Are you small, medium, big, pissed off? Like, what's your strategy there? How do you?
So first off, with something like that, like you say, the wind is your enemy no matter what, and so you have to figure out, okay, you got an east wind, you got a southwest wind. You got to figure out which direction you got. And from that moment on, like say you're hunting the steep hills of BC, for me, I like to get up on the same level, basically, is what that bull is. Because now they can just come across the hill towards you or drop down a ravine and come back up and have a look at you. But now you're also in the hills, so now you got to think about thermals. So that's a whole different beast. That's wind direction, plus it's the air that's heating and cooling. So for the people that don't know what thermals are, it's in the evening, the air cools, anything that's cold falls. So as the morning sun comes up, first thing in the morning, that air is going to be cold and it's going to be going down the mountain. Well, there's a switch around 8:30 in the morning. The sun's come up. It's now warming that air. So it's like a hot air balloon effect. It's warming that air. All of a sudden, that hot air is going to start rising. So that's your thermals. That's your scent. That's your stink. That's basically going up the mountain and down the mountain. So that's why if you know where he's bedded and you can hear him, you can hear the cow calls, like you said, try to get on the downwind side of him and be on the same height, basically, like be parallel across from him. And then you kind of have the thermals figured out at that point. Now it's just the wind direction and you're downwind of him. Now you've got all the odds in your favor for the wind. So if he's going to come over to check you out, he's at risk, because he's not using the wind in his favor. So in that scenario, that's a real fun one because, well, most guys would go in there and think, okay, well, I'm dealing with a herd bull. So you got to think, I guess I should back up. Most guys are going to fall into the category of being cow callers or buglers. So you got to kind of pick your craft. Like for me, I love bugling and I like portraying that I'm a bull. I'm not a big cow caller. If I do any cow sounds whatsoever, it's going to be a calf call. Just for the simple fact that, a calf call is going to attract a cow. A calf call is going to attract a spiker. It's going to attract the bigger bulls because the bigger bulls are coming to see what's going on. Why is this little guy making so much noise, right? You make a fuss, things are going to come and look. So my whole thing is I really like being the bull. And it all starts out with the simplest thing on the planet, raking a tree. I mean, a 4-year-old kid can rake a tree. Like I took Jason out last year. He's got 2 boys. Well, they're my rakers. Here, grab that stick and make some noise. Let them have fun. Let them go crazy. They're great little rakers. So But if you're by yourself, start raking a tree, and then just that action alone may bring that herd bull over, believe it or not. Because anytime you start raking a tree, you're displaying for cows. That's the whole aspect of it. You're not trying to show that bull, oh, look at how hard I raked this tree. I'm the biggest bull. I'm the meanest guy on the planet. No, that's not even their mind. He's raking that tree just to show the ladies, hey, baby, what's up? Like, look at how awesome I am raking this tree. Come have a look at me, right? So anytime you rake, you got to think, okay, you're frustrating that bull because you're trying to call his ladies to you. And you know what happens when you frustrate a bull? He's going to come have a look, right? So, and if that doesn't work, say the raking doesn't work, now you just pick it up a little bit, make your raking a little bit more aggressive, get a little bit louder, stomp your feet. Still, you fire a bugle at him, throw an advertising bugle, which an advertising bugle is just so location bugle is just a high note, 1 or 2 or 3 high notes, not very aggressive. Everybody can do it. An advertising bugle, or some people call it display bugle, advertising bugle. It's the same bugle. It doesn't matter what you call it. All it is really is a shorter location bugle with a growl on the end, right? So if I do a location bugle, pretty nonchalant, there's not much to it, right? But an advertising bugle, now shorten it up a little bit, shorten it up and growl. Urgh. See how the difference is? Now you're actually advertising to those cows, saying, hey, look at my awesome bugle. I sound pretty good. I'm worth checking out, right? Because you got to think, in the elk world, the cows are picking which bull they want to breed with. So if you can portray that you sound better than the bull that they're actually with, the cows are now going to come over to have a look. And if they start, wandering over, the bull's definitely going to get up and take notice. Crap, I'm losing my girls. I got to go see what's going on, and I got to contend with this dude, right? So now he's going to try to push you out. So that's kind of one of my favorite things. And honestly, I do that right from August 25th. I'm playing that scenario right through till into October. It's one of those things that works all the time. All these bulls, no matter what, one of those herd bulls is going to get whooped by another bull, no matter what. And there's going to be a new herd bull with those girls. So it might take 3 or 4 days, or it might take 2 weeks. But sooner or later, he's going to get run down. He's going to get tired. He's fighting off all these satellite bulls. There's going to be a bigger bull that just comes wandering around and whoops his butt and pushes him out. And now he's the king of the pack, right? So now you got a whole new bull that you can play with because he hasn't been called in by you. So that's kind of the fun part, And if you've moved, say, like in my areas, I'll usually hit an area once or twice in the morning kind of thing, and then I'll move off to 3 or 4 miles away. I'll go hit, bull B or bull C or bull D. You always have those other ones that you can go play with, and maybe you haven't called to those this year. So, go play with one of those and give these other bulls a break kind of thing. And so it's always fun. That scenario works time and time again. It's your advertising sequence. If you guys listen to Paul Medell, the Elk Nut, it's like an advertising sequence, stuff like that. If some of your listeners don't know who Paul is with the Elk Nut, look him up. He's literally called the Elk Nut. He goes through, like you mentioned, he's got the slow play advertising. He's got the breeding sequences, all these different sequences that you can go in the bush and you can play with, and you can portray different, different scenarios, throw a cow party, throw a bull party. If you got buddies with you, 2 or 3 buddies, just everybody grab a cow call and just start making a commotion. Same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's fun. You just never know what's going to happen. And I mean, you're out there, so you're there to have fun. Any day elk hunting is way better than being at work. So
yeah, for sure. So let's say you're in that scenario where you've got the herd bull. He's got his cows. He's in the bedding area. You've snuck in. It's 11 o'clock. You managed to get him up. You're still 100 yards. This has happened to me before several times. And you get him up and he's screaming, but he won't come in. He's just standing his ground, out of sight.
Yeah.
What's your silver bullet to get him to come in? Like you must have, I'm sure there's a couple different things. What do you suggest?
Yeah, you got the wind in your favor. Everything's kind of in your favor that way. So you're just he's bugling, but he's standoffish.
He's not coming. Yeah, he's not coming that last 50 yards to get in sight or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a hard one because you've been bugling to him the whole time, so he knows you're there no matter what. So you've lost the element of surprise. So you're basically going to have to, honestly, what I would do, I would either start bugling to him really aggressively, but then one of my tactics is to start drawing back and, go back down the game trail. As if you came up, you've pressured him, and now you're backing out. You're like, okay, you win. I'm going to back out of here. The minute you start doing that, you start going away. It's that cat and mouse game. He's going to start sucking forward because you're moving back. He wants to see that he's pushing you out of his area. So once you get 150 yards or 200 yards back, just go silent and maybe move off to the side. Go through the bush, off the game trail, 20, 30, 35 yards. Kick the ground down real nice to nice soft dirt and just stand there super quiet. Like put your shoulder up against a tree and literally just hang out. You're going to find a lot of times you'll suck that bull right in. He's going to come down the trail looking for you because it's nothing for them to cover 100, 150 yards. Like he'll do that in his sleep,
seconds.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's nothing for them. So they're 4-wheel drive creatures. They can move.
Mm-hmm.
So, try that little tactic and you'll be surprised how many bulls you suck in by that. And he'll be screaming the whole way. Well, now you see he's coming and you're moved off the game trail. That's one of the keys. Move off the game trail. He'll literally come right up to where you are and he'll walk right by you. So just let him keep coming. If something like that doesn't work, the other thing you can do, and this is more apt for what I would like to do, I would grab a tree and I would beat the living crap out of that tree with a big stick and get as ferocious and aggressive as you possibly can and just scream at that bull. And like when I say like scream, you're not lip balling, you're literally just screaming like ah. So it's like literally like get super aggressive with it and just hammer that call as loud and as sharp as you can, but keep it really short. When you keep a bull sound short and aggressive, it means violence. Like it provokes a response. So that's your whole game. So you've been just destroying this tree, and what you're doing is you're really displaying for those cows again, but now you're a ferocious bull that has to be noted, and he's got to come look at you, and his eyes going to roll in the back of his head, and he's going to be just mad at the world. He's coming to kick your butt and push you out of there. And I mean, it's awesome. If I can say that, honestly, it's the best scenario you can hope for, right? That thing is just mad. He's slobbering all over himself, and he's ready. So that's one thing that works a lot for me.
So I've had that's good stuff. I've never tried the retreat. I think that is an experienced, patient tactic from someone who's been there a lot. Because I think what happens, right, is even if you've done it a few times and you've called in your bulls, your adrenaline is so jacked. Like, I mean, you get just the simple sound of a bull returning a location bugle as soon as you get out of the truck and hit the trailhead. I mean, it's adrenaline, 120 overload, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's a really hot tip. I mean, that we definitely, Blake and I have had that situation before where we've got him screaming, but he just won't close the deal.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about something a little different. And I've heard different tactics. I've tried all kinds of things. I know, I got this from actually when I was hunting in Alberta. One of the guys I was hunting with did this a lot. He would get out of the truck we'd get out of the truck in the dark and start working into an area, and he would cow call just softly as we're walking down the game trail. And quite a few times you'd hear, you'd either hear elk, sometimes you hear cows responding to that from 100 yards away. Every once in a while you'd hear a bugle, or sometimes depends if the wind was going the wrong way to the wrong herd, you get a stampede. Do you ever try that? Like, do you ever work a cow call in the dark or on your way in, like just to sound like elk moving?
I honestly don't, but it just goes back to me. Cow calling is kind of boring, and I'm not that
exactly.
I guess I shouldn't say it's boring. I don't know. It's just something I don't want to do. I don't even know how to explain it, really.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's just you're a born cow caller or you're a born bugler. I mean, there's no in between. I mean, yes, I do cow call and I bugle a little bit, but there's certain times to use a cow call, because I know for sure in Alberta, if I'm walking down a game trail, and there's a certain bull, if you let out a cow call, you're 1 out of 10 bulls is going to come in and check you out, but the other 9 are going to go the other way. So, and the reason being they're going the other way, you hear Joel Turner talk about this. You're a girl coming into their world, and you're not part of their group already. So if you make a cow sound, why would those cows allow you into their herd with their boyfriend, right? They don't even know you. Joel Turner calls them like what does he call them? I don't even remember what he calls them, but a floozy or something like that. Like
a floozy.
Why would those ones let the floozy come in, right? So
for sure. And
I've seen it time and time again. You make a cow sound, and those girls are going to round up, and they're going to go the opposite way of you. And unfortunately, what happens with that, now you have that bull that's a runner, and we all have that. And it's because we went in with a cow call, just a simple. As you're walking down the trail, and we don't even think we're doing it, but automatically you're turning those off and you're turning them against you. Because you've had it, I've had it 100 times. You hear a bugle. Oh, okay, that bull, he bugled. Awesome. He's 150 yards ahead of me. Perfect. You move in. What us hunters do, we move in, close the distance, half that distance, bugle at him again. Okay. Well, now he's 200 yards away. What the heck? I just moved up halfway. I should be right on top of him, right? No, that's not the case. So those cows heard you cow call. They're already taking, action. They're moving out of the area. That bull's just following. And now the next bugle you'll hear the bugle at 250 yards. So you close the distance again. Okay, I moved up another 100. I'm 150 away. Next thing you know, he's 300 yards away. Crap, he's gaining on you. He's gaining. He's going further away. And pretty soon he's over the next, 2 or 3 ridges over, and you're going, man, he just left me in the dust, and I can't keep up with him. And what do I got to do to turn him, right? So in my experience, there is a way to turn that bull around, for sure. And I've done it a number of times, but it requires that action of being very aggressive. And now you got to just break stuff and demolish every tree in the area and make stuff happen. Scream bugle after bugle after bugle. Make him think, okay, what's going on over there? I got to go see what's happening over there. Like, there's a major ruckus going on, and that bull's going to turn, and he's going to come back. He's going to think, okay, well, you're really displaying hard for my girls. I'm pushing you out of here finally, right? So, and at that time, again, that's one of those scenarios where that bull is just going to be screaming at the top of his lungs at you. So, I mean,
right on.
I mean, you just can't be scared to try it. That's all. Most guys are, they're scared to do stuff like that because they think, oh, you're going to scare them away. But you're not losing anything, because that elk keeps going away from you anyways. You're going to lose them anyways. So, right?
You might as well try, right?
You might as well. Yeah, exactly. So,
that's awesome. So we're going to leave the cow call in our pocket for the first half of the season, Blake, this time.
Yeah.
So this next scenario has happened to me. I mean, it happened last year so many times. And I've had it over the years where, you know, you're in there at first light, you know, there's elk, you know, you got a spot, you know, kind of where they're going. You get to your spot before, you know, you got the wind right, and you let your location bugle go.
Yeah.
And you get that really soft, you know, basically you're at the top of the hill going, hello, anybody out there? And you get that, yeah, I'm over here. And then you wait 5-10 minutes, you do it again. A couple minutes later, he replies, and you don't go anywhere but just, hello, how are you? Like,
Yeah.
what's your tactic there? Are you going right in, try to cut the distance? I'm sure that's the plan. No.
So first off, I'm going to spend about like you do. I stay in that spot for a good 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. And I'll just call with that bull and I'll see what he's doing. So if that bugle moves, like say it's over here, you know, like right in front of you, and that bugle all of a sudden it's over to the side 100, 150 yards. Well, that's a bull that's out searching. So that's basically a location bugle. And that's what he's doing. A location bugle is a bull that's on the move. But say your scenario, that bugle is coming from the same spot time after time. Like you got 3 replies back, 4 replies back. Well, now that's a bull. That tells me right away that bull has cows. And it might be only 1 cow. It might be 20 cows. You don't know. But if a bull is staying in one spot, it's because he's holding his ground because he has girls. So now you have to kind of, okay, if it's a locating bull and he's on the move, basically I like to figure out, well, which direction is he going? And I'll get on a game trail or I'll go through the bush until I hit a game trail, and then I'll try to cut him off. And that's a bull where you can actually call over with like 2 or 3 cow calls. You can stay with your cow calls because he's a solo bull and he's moving. He's actually looking for cows. So when he bugles to you, he's telling you to come over. So that's a great time where you guys can throw that cow call at him, and you'll actually call that bull in with cow calls. But you have to remember, every time he bugles, he's telling you to come to him. So don't stay back that 100 yards and not move. Go, okay, he bugled, and you're scared to move, right? You have to move. You got to move. And so what I like to do is, especially if there's 2 of you, get the shooter out front of you and have him 20 yards ahead of you and just keep going towards that bull, you know, at an angle if you can. And then all of a sudden, once you get, you know, kind of parallel to him, stop. And then basically your shooter is already going to be out front of you because you're both kind of, if you're both shooting, like say this is the shooter and you're the cow caller. So basically you're both moving in unison, like down the trail together. You know what I mean? And you're keeping him ahead of you. So now when you get to that point where you've closed the distance, that's why I say go at an angle, get on a trail or a game trail that closes in on him just a little bit, and then set up and then give out your cow calls. But don't just, What I like to do, I like to make them stir on it. So I'll literally give them 1 cow mew, and then I'll just sit there and wait. Let it really get in. He's going to be like, okay, great, there's a cow over there. Wait 5 minutes and let that bull just go, oh, what's going on? I'm not here. And he's going to bugle back probably 2 or 3 times in that 5 minutes, but you haven't said a word. So now that bull's like, he's going to start getting frustrated, and he's going to be like,
yeah, it's driving him nuts.
Yeah, why isn't this hot chick talking to me, right? Like, I'm calling to you, beautiful. Like, answer me back. So finally, after about 5 minutes, give him another cow mew, but just do 1. So do another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let him stir on it just a little bit, and it's just going to grind on him, and he's going to be like, screw it, I'm coming over. And he next you know, he's beelining right for you, and your shooter's at full draw, and you shoot him at 15 yards, right?
Yeah, right on. Yeah, for sure.
So that's the bull that's moving. So that's a locating bull, right? So the other one is the advertising bull. He's got cows. He's not moving whatsoever. So in that situation, now you got to try to pull that bull away from his cows. Well, how are you going to do that? Because he could have 1 cow, he could have 3, he could have 10, right? So by going in there and cow calling, a cow call is not going to work. He's already got 10 cows, right? So 1 more doesn't make a difference to him. So now you got to portray that bull. You got to go in there and you got to, again, what I would do is I would throw in start moaning and groaning. And what you can do is like a tending sequence. And tending is just little moans and groans and just chuckles. So. Throw in some huffs. Throw in glunks. Glunks is a bull that's right up behind a cow. And he's literally, what he's doing, he's cleaning his sensories off his nose. So his tongue is like, he's cleaning those sensories so he can smell her. Because a bull that's glunking knows that there's a cow in estrus. So he's basically feeling her out to see if she's ready. And if she'll stand for him, he's going to mount her. So
yeah, so then this bull is sitting there and all of a sudden he hears the glunking and all that other stuff.
Yep.
He's like, oh shit, there's another guy and he's got girls and one of them's ready to rock. Okay.
That's right. Because he's amongst his girls and none of them are in estrus, right? Yeah. So you could be a bull and walk right into him. He could care less. It don't matter. Mm-hmm. You can't breed any of his girls anyways because they're not ready. But you being the bull outside with a cow that's ready, he'll leave those cows now. He'll come over and have a look at you because he's got nothing to lose. He might just steal it and get a new girlfriend. Now he's breeding her, right?
Now, is this a situation where you maybe want to try a cow call too, or no? You just
I totally
with the
wouldn't.
Bull
no,
yeah,
too
much to do, right?
Yeah, the minute you make a cow call, number one, those cows might gather up and leave, or he's not going to have a reason. A cow call doesn't require anything for him to come over. Like it's not telling him anything. It's just, there's another girl. Big deal. I got 10 already, right?
Yeah.
You have to give him a reason, and that reason is you're a bull getting ready to breed her. Holy crap, that's a pretty good reason. Like that's their whole existence. Exactly. Like that's why they're there, right?
Yeah,
so
that's what they're after.
Yeah. Give them a reason. Yeah.
I noticed Sheldon had a funny question in the chat too. He's asking Travis, on average, how many hunters do you call in when you're out hunting?
In a season.
Yeah, it's kind of different, but let's see, last year was, you gotta remember, I kind of hunt deep in the bush where I'm hoping there isn't other people, and I'm using really low tone sounds. Honestly, you're not going to hear me bugling and location bugling and be able to move in on me because I'm in the bush and I'm doing real light, low stuff. But you still end up calling people in. It's honestly not a whole lot. It's like maybe a group of 2 or 3 guys that are walking along doing some stuff. And last year we only called in. There was only 2 guys that came in on us. But I mean, I guess it really just depends on the area that you're hunting. And
sure, yeah.
Grand Prairie, I hunt the Spirit River area a lot, and there's a million hunters. But the thing is, our crown land, it's like you guys in BC. Our crown land is so vast. I mean, you go 2 miles down the road and drive up into the hills, and you're into a whole different pocket of elk, and you're away from the hunters again, right? So, I mean, it's pretty low. It's low. It's only a couple of guys a year, I'd say.
And as soon as you hear them call back, exactly it's not an elk more often than not.
Yeah, and you get those guys that are devilish and they want to call in people and just make a fool out of them. I'm kind of the other guy. I go quiet and then I let them move off, and I don't really want to call them in. Well, for one, I don't want to give my hunting areas up, so I don't really want them knowing where I'm hunting, especially if they haven't heard nothing or anything like that. Why give your hunting area away, right? The only time I get, I have had hunters that try to come in on, say you're working a bull, and this happens every year. You're working a bull, all of a sudden you'll have someone from the other side, and you can tell they're an elk hunter because they're bugling and then they're cow calling right after it. That's a dead giveaway that's a hunter, because in the real world, the bull, you don't hear this.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
The bulls and cows don't do that, right?
No.
But hunters do it every single time. So you kind of you listen for those stuff, right? And those guys, because you know they're moving in on you, and I hope like crazy that they can tell that you're a hunter trying to call this bull in. I don't know, maybe maybe not, but
Yeah.
those guys I will try to call in, just for spite. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So this is another scenario that I've ran into a few times, and I'm sure lots of people have. You go into a spot that you're working, and you get out, you're on the trailhead, and you let a bugle go, and you get 4 bugles back at the same time in sort of a pretty close proximity, maybe a couple hundred yards extreme of
Yep.
each other. So you got a herd bull with cows, and you got satellites.
Yeah.
And this happened to us a few years ago where it was like the herd bull and a bunch of smaller bulls around him, and we're trying to figure out, first of all, you got to try to pick the loudest, nastiest one, and that's not always right. Sometimes he's not that could be a satellite. I had a raghorn come in one time that sounded like the throatiest, nastiest 7-9 point whatever,
Yeah.
and he was just a
exactly.
little shithead with a deep voice.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't think there's a tactic to that, but any tips for that? Like if you're trying to measure out what you're up against there, if you got, say, 3 bulls going or 4.
So for me, my whole tactic is, I guess I could say I don't care what they sound like. For me, I'm going to play the wind, and I'm going to go to the closest one that's in my advantage,
With the wind. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I have to work my way through all 3 or 4 of those bulls to get to one that's, a big 5 or a big 6 or a 7x7, then so be it. I mean, my way of thinking, at least you got to play with a bull that morning. And
Yeah.
even if
Practice.
it's good practice. And even if you take an hour to play with that bull and it doesn't pan out, you can still work on to those other ones. But say it became like 10:30, 11 o'clock, those bulls are going to be all getting to their bedding area, and they're going to be shutting up pretty soon, right? So that's when you stop playing the game with them, and you kind of work your way through them quite a bit faster, and you don't really worry. If you blow one out, you blow one out. You just move on to the next one, kind of thing. So just kind of up your odds. And if you have 3 or 4 bulls like that, pretty good odds you can probably call 2 of them in out of the 4. And have a look at them and see what they are anyway. So that's
like you said, it's good practice,
yeah.
right? So
it's 100% just dictated by the wind and what's my move, what's my advantage, 100%. Yeah.
No, it's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think in BC for sure. I mean, our elk populations are not as huge, obviously, as they are in the States for sure. And if you watch too many elk hunting TV shows, you get kind of numb to what might be the right tactic. But I like yours. I mean, if you find elk, take advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
I guess that kind of brings me to another sort of question regarding calling. You see a lot of these guys in the high density elk areas with super aggressive competitive bulls with like lip balling and screaming and doing that whole game right to the bitter end. Is that something that's realistic for you in Alberta? Like, how often are you lip balling a bull and screaming at his top of your lungs at him, in close proximity?
Yeah, honestly. So the way I look at it, in Alberta, if we get on one elk in the morning, we had a hell of a morning. And it's probably the same in BC, right? I mean, we did something right. Like our elk population is 37,000, I believe, in Alberta. And I think you guys are like 68,000, something like that. So
yeah, I don't know the number. I know
it's pretty close
to
something like that. Yeah, not a lot. So we take advantage of every single one we get. Like some of those states, some of the big states have 200,000 elk and 3.
Yeah, exactly.
You look up Colorado, I think they're probably close to 300,000. That's a lot of animals that you have chances to call in, right? But going back to the question, I can think back in the last 2 years that I know for sure I've maybe lip balled to one bull, honestly. Yeah. So, but a lip ball isn't the be all end all, right? There's so many other sounds that are way more advantageous for you to use. That I mean, the minute you lip ball to a bull, well, you're either challenging him with a ferocious lip ball, or you're actually screaming at him where you actually are challenging him. Both those calls are pretty aggressive, and you run the risk of that bull just, his cows rounding up and heading out, and that's what's going to happen. So, I mean, like, a lot of our bulls are, honestly, the Alberta bulls are 4.5 years old. That most of the herd bulls, they're a 4-point, they're a 5-point. That's our average age that gets shot, right? So, and I mean, it doesn't mean a 4.5-year-old 5-point is going to have 20 cows. He's going to have four or five, maybe 6, right? But there'll be 20 5x5s that all have 4 or 5, right? So
exactly.
That's how our Alberta herds kind of split up. Late in the season, in the winter, in November, December, you will see herds of 200-300, crossing the fields. But in hunting season, it's one bull will have 3-4 cows, 3 cows and a calf, right? So, yeah, and those littler bulls, like, yeah, it's just, I don't want to get real aggressive with them to that point where I'm just traveling through the bush and just screaming, lip balling, because you are going to get noticed by some of the bigger 5 points and 6 points. You may get a reply back, but it's very few. Like, I would say it's probably 1 out of 8 or 10 bulls that's going to reply back to you. And so I'm not saying it can't happen, but just be wary. We're not hunting that big numbers, right? That we can.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, I think the mindset should be every elk, every bull you call is a magical potential elk that you've got to try and call them in.
Yeah, 100%.
Having hunted Alberta, you mentioned that Spirit River area. That's kind of the general area that I've hunted twice, and 2 years in a row, it was like, I think it was around like the 20th of September was when we were hunting. And it was middle of the day. We actually shot, my buddy shot his bull, a 5-point. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning in the deepest, darkest bottom of the, one of those Peace River gorges. And, we got the call, we had the bull calling, right around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We worked our way down, and we're talking, 1 or 2 bugles. That's it. Maybe an hour later, you get a small moan. We got close.
Yeah.
And we did 1 bugle, and the bull came in silent. It took him about 40 minutes, but you could hear him coming. Yeah. And managed to shoot him, like at 11:30 at like 20 yards with a rifle. And then ironically, the next year, almost to the day, to the minute, to the second, to the exact spot within 100 yards, we had the same thing. Both bulls came in silent.
Yeah.
Is that something you see a lot of, like, come around that second end of the second, start of the third week? I guess probably from pressure, right?
Yeah. And quite honestly, right from opening morning, August 25th, right straight through, a lot of those bulls, I would say like 50% of them are going to come in silent. And what in all honesty, it might be even higher than that, but that's just the bulls that you see. What about the bulls that are? What about those bulls that are over that second ridge that you can't see, and they just kind of peek their eyes over and like, I see movement that's not right, and they go the other way, right? And getting back to our age class, those bulls they're not gonna come around. They're gonna go the other way. Yeah.
So I think in those cases, like both of those scenarios, we had location bugles. The bulls weren't coming to us. I don't really know if either one of them had cows, but we came in, we played a really slow play game with them and just patiently waited. And I think, what I took away from that was, if you're close, if you're within a couple hundred yards and you hear a bugle and then it goes quiet,
Yeah.
just wait it out, right? I mean, that was our tactic, because we just sat there, and then it was like a half an hour later we heard a stick break, and all of a sudden, boom, you could see movement. You just sneaking right in.
Yeah. So that's kind of
Interesting.
that's kind of one of the things I do as well. But the only thing I would do different from you is I would answer one of his bugles, like wait till he fires off, and then reply back to him with an advertising bugle, just right.
Just
And
then
then
at the end, yeah.
But now I would bump up probably 50 or 60 yards, and then I would totally go silent. Now, as he's coming in, he's searching for that sound that he knows is way back there. So he's pretty safe. And it doesn't give him the opportunity to poke his eyes up above that ridge and go, oh, what's over there? Right. So now you put it back in your odds, and you can still go completely silent. And if you're with a buddy, just spread out a little bit, get 30, 40 yards, apart, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Still be in the area where you can see each other, because it's nice to know when all of a sudden you see your buddy tense up, or you see him reach for his bow, or you see him go to full draw. Well, dang, something's going down, right? You might not even hear or see that elk because they're coming in silent, but all of a sudden your buddy goes to full draw. You're like, holy crap, this is going to happen. Right. So.
Yeah. And I think that, that kind of leads into one of my last topics I want to talk about, is kind of doing that setup and setting up your location. I mean, Blake and I got pinched last year. We were doing an evening hunt, and we're working this ridge that the elk they kind of moved up during the day to the top of this ridge, and then in the evening they'd work their way down. So for our evening hunt, there was no way for us to get around them. So we were working our way up, trying to kind of get in the way they were coming. The wind was right. And, all of a sudden, we had two bulls going after us or answering, coming in. Yeah. And the one we wanted to kill was above us, because in BC, the bulls tend to want to come in from above you. That's just their MO. So they got the height advantage. So we're working this one up top, and then all of a sudden, sort of to our left and down a little bit, this other bull goes off, and he's right there. He's like less than 100 yards, but we're stuck in this little shithole. We can't turn, even if we were, I don't even think we could get a rifle shot off. So I think it's important to kind of map out. You got to have, I can't remember if it was Chris Rowe or one of those guys I was listening to. They talk about the setup being like almost like rooms of a house, right? So you want to set up in the living room, and you're calling someone from the bedroom. They want to come to a door and peek in, right? So maybe give us a little insight on your setup areas and what you look for from the caller and the shooter. How are you setting up?
Yeah. So basically, you peeked at it right there. He's peeking in the bedroom. So, and Joel Turner calls that the doorway. Some guys call it the wall. They hit a wall, and you can't get them past it no matter what you do. And that's a bull that comes into that area, and basically, once he can see the area where he knows the sounds are coming from, that's where he's going to stop 100%. So my way around that is exactly what I kind of preluded to before there. I'll do some calling, but before I even do any calling, I'll go up 25, 35, maybe 40 yards. I'll kick the ground clean to where I want to stand. Then I'll drop back, do my calling. And then after I do my calling scenario or my one bugle or whatever I'm going to do, now I instantly go back to my shooting spot, which is 35, 40 yards ahead. Don't do any
So
calling.
this is solo. This is when you're solo hunting.
Yep. I do this actually with buddies and stuff too. Yeah. I'll either, if you're with a buddy, we'll move up. We'll get a good shooting spot for him, put him in spot, then drop back and do your calling. And I learned this from, honestly, the first bunch of elk that I ever called in. And back then it was a lot easier to call an elk. Like 30 years ago, you could throw out a cow call and the bulls would come looking for you, right? So
Hoochie mama.
Actually, when I started, we didn't even have a hoochie mama. So, but what I found happened, I would be that guy and I would let out a call from standing in the middle of a cut line. And, you just throw out one cow call, and all of a sudden 100 yards down the cut line, out walks a cow elk. And now she's looking at you. And you're standing in the middle of the wide open cut line, right? Like, you're totally busted.
Yeah.
You're done. Like, you're not calling that elk in, no matter what you do. Don't care what strategy or scenario you throw at it. You're not going to win it. So, and I got busted time after time after time. I don't even know how many times I got busted just from doing, we get complacent, and I probably still do it to this day. I know I do. You call from the wide open where you're just, maybe I'll bugle from here, and I'll see if I
rip
get
one from here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And in our woods are so thick, there can be an elk 20 yards down, and they're just going to step out and have a look at you, like peek around that tree, right? So, so I kind of learned my setup just from that, and it came out of necessity. You literally have to find your shooting spot, and it's one of those things where you think when you're moving into that area and the areas out in front of you kind of look more elky, and you kind of get, I guess it's your spider sense. Your spider sense starts tingling. You're like, that looks like a really good area. Like, say you're approaching like a thicket of pines or those spruce tree thickets and stuff like that. And before that, you'd been in all poplar trees, right? Well, out of knowledge with the elk, pretty good chance there might be either a moose bedded in there or an elk bedded in there or something bedded in there, right? So once you see those areas, and that's kind of stuff I look for on Google Earth as well. Most of our stuff's all poplar trees, and I'll look for those little patches of spruce trees or pines or a willow thicket, stuff like that. And then I'm kind of working towards those areas intently on thinking that something's sleeping there, right? And so right away that's going to be a spot where they can just literally come outside of that and have a look, So you're obviously not going to get real close to those areas, but if there's like some fallen down logs and stuff, I will get up off to one side of those logs, kick the ground out to bare, kick the ground down to bare dirt. That's what I like to do, because when you're standing in bare dirt, kick a circle the size of the hood of your truck. Now you can move silently. You can turn
quietly.
You can do what you need to do, and you're not standing on that dry grass that we have. And then from there, if you're with your buddy, leave him there and literally drop back that 20, 30, 40 yards and then do your calling scenario from there. So it's all about that human nature, the way we are. We want to call and then we want to move forward. We want to call and then we want to move forward. And most of us are not patient. Like elk hunting is a patience game. Like if you think you're going slow enough, and this is something Wayne Carlton taught me a long time ago. If you think you're going slow enough, he said, slow down another 50%. Yeah. So let that sink in. That's from one of the best elk hunters in the world, Wayne Carlton, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
for sure.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome, Travis. We are zeroing in on our live streams cap out at 2 hours, so we've got like 5 to 7 minutes left. So I got one more question for you, and then we're gonna close out with a giveaway with the prize pack that you gave us, generously donated. So if you can, tell us a short story about the craziest elk encounter that you've had in the bush, and I'm sure you've had some doozies. So
So this is where I learned to be aggressive. So I was hunting this bull it's probably about 6-7 years ago now, giant 7x8. First morning I went in and I thought, well, I'm going to cow call to him. It's a bull. He's got like 15 cows. And so I'll set up the scenario. I'm walking in on kind of just a little ridge, and down below me, it's like a grassy meadow that's filled with, fresh little creek waters running through, and it's chopped like by willows and stuff. And the elk are always in there because the willows are cool and the water is fresh and coming out of a spring. It's just awesome. But there's a ridge that kind of goes all the way around from the west side to the north side. So I like to get up on this ridge when the wind condition is right and it's blowing, from the meadow area up to my ridge. And this bull's always in there with cows. And so I thought, well, I'm going to get him this first morning. I'm going to get him. And So I go in there, and I'm in the pitch black first thing in the morning, and I'm sneaking down these game trails just ever so quietly. If I feel a little branch under my foot, I'm backing off and I'm stepping over it. I'm doing everything I can be to get as close to this bull as possible. So I honestly, the first morning I got to within like 75, 80 yards of him. And what do? It becomes legal shooting time. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching him. He's on the other side of this grass meadow. And I've worked my way down this ridge. And I'm on just up the ridge just a little bit, but I can see through the grass meadow. And I range find him at 78 yards. And I think, okay, well, I got him. So me not knowing, this is 6-7 years ago, I throw a cow call at him. Well, his girls did not like that one bit. I literally made one stinking cow call. His girls rounded up and took him over the North Ridge. And I could hear him bugling to the girls, his roundup bugle. And away they went, it's like, oh man, what did I just do? Right. So the hunt was over. I went back home and thought, okay, well, I'll try him again next morning. So the next morning, same thing. I go back in, sneak in. I can see them across the meadow. And I thought, well, the cow call didn't work. So, man, I'm going to bugle at him. So back then I didn't really know the language too good. So I just fired off a bugle, which was probably just a location bugle of some sort. Well, same thing. The girls rounded up over that North Ridge, and he followed in tow, bugling the whole way. I could hear him 300-400 yards away, just screaming his head off. Hunt is over. You're done. So I think, wow, that really sucked. That didn't work. So I thought, well, I'm not going to come back the next morning. I'm going to give him a whole day break. I'll come back, the day after that, and I'll try him again. So I went in there, and I thought, well, whatever that bugle was, he didn't like it. So I got to try something different, right? So again, I threw something out. I think I chuckled to him just to think, because I think I read back then, if you chuckle at him, you invite him over, right? Because that's usually what a chuckle is. So I chuckled at him. The cows rounded up over the ridge, and away he went, just screaming his head off again. Well, this is the third morning that I failed on this bull. So I was very frustrated. And I used to carry my bow on the side of my pack on a little rope. And so I had my bow on there. So out of frustration, I grabbed a tree and I just smashed it. I was pretty frustrated. And I was cussing at this bull, calling him a coward and saying everything in our language. Like I'm literally talking.
You're swearing at him.
To this bull, yeah. Like I don't care if I chase him out of here. It was one of the last days I got to hunt anyways. So I'm swearing at him, F-bombs, you name it, whatever. And I just destroy this tree. Like I started with a 12-foot tree and I had a 1-foot branch in my hand at that time. And lo and behold, this bull turned and he started coming back at me and he's screaming, screaming, and he's getting close. Now he's 35 yards away from me. I grab my bow and I go to knock an arrow and my string is limp on my bow. So in my haste destroying this tree, I hit my bowstring off my cams. So there I am.
Oh no.
I'm bowless basically. And so I have my one cam and I have it dug in the ground and I'm trying to push my limbs down so I can get my string back on. This bull's 35 yards away, just
he wants to go.
At me, he's going nuts, right? So I'm backing back down my little game trail that I'm sneaking in on. I'm retreating down this trail now. This bull parallels me at 35 yards. And at the closest time, he was like 25 yards away from me. He paralleled me for a mile, all the way back out to where my truck was parked. No. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs the whole way. It was insane. So that's where I learned. That's where I learned be aggressive and you'll turn those bulls. That's what happened.
Right on. Oh, that's cool. Well, Trav, we are down to like the last minute, and then we're gonna hit the thing's gonna pull the abort button on us. So let's do. We have a giveaway from Travis, so let's do one more. It's a Wapiti River gift pack. Got some reeds and a storage case. So Blake, pull that up. Meanwhile, Trav, if we get cut off, thank you so much. All right, buddy. Well, good luck. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
some picks, and we'll get you back on after elk season and see
You
how you
bet.
do with the elk bros and stuff. But thanks
Sounds
again.
good.
This was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Good luck to everybody out there. I wish you all the best.
And where do we find you, Trav? Wapiti River Outdoors.
Yeah, WapitiRiverOutdoors.com for all our reeds and tubes and everything like that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Awesome.
Talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
guys.